For Crypto Global News, I'm Edward. Today we're bringing you an interview with Jared Polites, a Houston native who was raised by an Argentinian mother and a father from the American Midwest. Being a good Texan boy, Jared went to study at the University of Texas at Austin, where he earned himself a bachelor's in business administration with a focus on entrepreneurship. And at the age of only 22, he landed a job at the FBI. Now, Jared found purpose and enjoyment in working for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but he also knew there was more he wanted to life that the FBI just couldn't offer. After leaving the Bureau, he went on to do a master's degree in finance and strategy at Sciences Po in Paris. Now Jared is one of the top marketing experts, if not the best in the world, of cryptocurrency. He has helped to raise nearly $500 million for the ICOs he's helped bring into the marketplace, and he's not slowing down anytime soon. I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with Jared where he breaks down an insider's knowledge on what it takes to launch a successful ICO. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. And without further ado, I give you Jared Polites. Today we're talking to one of the marketing experts in the crypto field, the young, the vivacious, the very talented and super smart Jared Polites. Jared, it's good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, Edward.
Excellent. So I've got some questions. A lot of it came from fans and other folks in our community, basically about launching a successful ICO. So I've already done the intro about you and your really cool history, so I'm just going to rip on into the questions if that's cool with you.
Sure.
Excellent. No worries. So on your LinkedIn profile, it states that you've been a part of teams that have successfully launched over $400 million for the ICOs that you've worked on. So what's your biggest general tip so far as launching a successful ICO and getting the money necessary to sort of launch the platform?
Yeah, definitely don't rush it. So stemming back to late 2017, there was this big wave of companies that wanted to get their ICO out before 2018 hit. The reason being everybody expected 2018 to be the year of regulation. So really important just to know your roadmap, have everything built out very thoroughly, and just take your time. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, it's a very simple piece of advice, but a lot of ICOs get rushed. And time the market too. If the market's not doing well, don't force it, right? You can push it back a couple months. There's no time limit on ICOs. So that's my number one piece of advice.
That's fantastic. So I like that, because with any business, it's good to take a bit of time and get your bricks and mortar proper. With the actual sort of owner or founders, if you like, are there things they can do daily or weekly or whatever sort of to the lead up?
Yeah, I mean, start thinking strategically, right? I mean, partnerships, post ICO strategy. And the most important thing, and I know we'll touch on this probably in a little bit, is build your brand, right? It's never too early to start building your brand. I think a lot of companies, they focus on ICO marketing, but not so much general brand building, brand identity, and brand marketing, right? And that's essentially what's going to take a company past the point of ICO into success. You have to have a brand. So do that soon, launch your communities, get feedback, interact with people, start reaching out, develop partnerships. Never too early to do that. Just you don't have to hit go on the token sale until you feel like everything's in place at that point.
But the brand thing's interesting. I remember when I was a kid reading an article, I think it was in the late 90s after Mandela came out of prison, and it said the most famous name in the world is Coca-Cola, and then the second most famous name is Nelson Mandela, and then it's Oprah and all these people. So the brand thing is pretty.
Imagine that. Yeah. And if you get somebody early enough, think about it I'm still eating the same cereal I ate when I was a 7-year-old kid, right? That's because of branding. It's not because of I'm not particularly fond of sweet cereal, but I'm still eating it. I don't know. It's good branding.
Yeah, but it works for you. So, because you know marketing from the ground up, I mean, it's is there any difference in building a brand in the space of ICOs versus anything else, or is it sort of much what does that look like?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ICOs, you're going to have a community that's focused on token buyers and quote unquote speculators, right? So there's people that want to make money from engaging in the project. Then you're going to have a smaller subsector of people that are going to be really passionate about what the company's building, the team, the roadmap. They're in it for the long term. These are the people, right? If you can get 100 of these, they're arguably more valuable than thousands of ICO supporters. A lot of people are going to say, well, maybe they don't bring the money like maybe a lot of ICO supporters will, but long term, that ROI will pay off.
Yeah.
So that's just focus on that. Get that core audience.
Yeah. So then, as far as
branding, creating the community, getting those fans, what social media platforms do you think function best for ICOs?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Twitter is still good. Telegram's obviously the de facto go-to community platform. I would argue that probably is going to change at some point. I don't know. Telegram for me, the UX UI is kind of sloppy and things get lost and there's no way of categorizing things. But yeah, and then you're like content's such a big play that's heavily neglected. Like being able to post Medium updates, and it sounds very generic, but like I always recommend companies do a 1 week progress report. So whether the beginning or the end of a week, talk about what's happening, give insight into what the team's building, the progress, insights, maybe access to an AMA link to it. And then on top of that, you want to build like strategic content, not only for like SEO and actually attracting new people to the project, but to get your messaging out there, to build that trust. And that's been a big issue. I mean, usually, as a marketing advisor, I don't have time to write content. It's very time consuming. Founding teams feel the same. So there tends to be this gap of like, who's going to write the actual content. So that's where I would recommend start thinking about, partnering with an agency that can alleviate a lot of that stuff. And obviously capital is required. So maybe that's a concern, but the time savings from that's going to be huge.
Sure. So because of obviously writing, something I know about is just time consuming, let alone can be sort of a pain in the rear end. And you have to do regular updates. What about like video content? Because that's something you can do quite quickly and upload. Is that effective in the ICO space? Or
yeah, it is. I mean, I think it humanizes everything, right? And obviously, with the way we are these days, it's easy to access people and see them face to face. But I would recommend it. I mean, look, I don't think you have to be like competitive like a YouTube vlogger is, right? You're not trying to be the next Casey Neistat. You're just trying to humanize what you're trying to do, communicate that message, open up the dialogue and the discussion. Obviously link that to other social channels. It just gives you content to spread across the community. I mean, it takes half an hour to do a video every week. I think it's positive. It's positive ROI.
Sticking with video, like some people really love, YouTube as a platform to access video content and to get updates and stuff like that, and some don't. But what do you think are sort of the best aspects of video and YouTube essentially as a platform to access data with an ICO?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we can break that down into like native content, which is in-house, and then also influencer content. So we did a really heavy analysis of all the marketing channels 3 months ago. What we found is that YouTube influencers still convert the highest. Second, there's a couple of interesting websites like ICO listing sites that tend to push quite a bit of traffic. But YouTube influencers are really effective. I know one YouTuber that called a client, I think it was 4 or 5 hours earlier at 10 a.m. and my client answered on video and just woke up, was completely out of it, and the guy wanted to do the interview at that point to make it authentic, right? So my client was caught off guard. Now, arguably not the best strategy. I don't think my client was so happy about that, but it makes you think, hey, that's one way of making sure it's an authentic interview at that point. But yeah, so I'm very pro influencers, pro YouTube, native content. I just think if you're going to engage with professionals, just make sure it's obviously objective is the way to go. Make it natural.
You touched on analytics before, which is a big thing for any business owner, whether you're selling loaves of bread or certainly ICOs. So if we look at the analytics so far as like Facebook has a great ad platform, and so does Google. What about like Twitter, LinkedIn, and other platforms? How do they stack up compared to Facebook and LinkedIn? Specifically looking at the analytics you can use to build a good campaign.
Yeah, not as robust. So I think like Facebook and Google are obviously especially for e-commerce focused or attracting money online, they still tend to convert the best and have the most robust targeting options. The smaller platforms like Twitter also and LinkedIn also have an analytics kind of tool that you can use to target people. I would say be diligent. I mean, even using like an Alexa or similar web to start analyzing website traffic is important. So I'll give you guys an example. We got contacted by a Russian listing site that had 3 million uniques, and I checked on them, and they launched like a month and a half before that point. And so I was thinking, wow, 3 million uniques, a month and a half, like these guys have it figured out. Yeah. So then I dig a little deeper on, I think it was similar web. You realize they're Russian, or they're not Russian, I'm sorry. They're Russian, but their content's in English, but 90% of their traffic is from Russia. which knowing
Right.
Russia,
Yeah.
they're not reading English websites. I mean,
Probably not.
yeah, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So that was obviously bot manipulated traffic. And so
Yeah.
what happens when it's inflated like that, they go out and they say, hey, pay me $50 for a press release,
Yeah.
$100 for a listing, whatever the case is. That's how they're making their money. It's artificial. A lot of it's artificial. So, yeah, I mean, use those tools that are publicly available, and obviously targeting, go after regions, make sure you localize. That's super important. Now, targeting Japan and Korea is very different, the messaging and obviously the language, the visuals. So just keep that in mind. Localize everything and, test. Just goes back to traditional tech and e-commerce. Test, 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 and then double down on the winning ad sets, essentially.
Point that you and I had touched on before. It was interesting you talking about sort of marketing in the East versus marketing in the West, because even just the verbiage people use is going to be different. Do you do a whole other set of campaigns for each region, or how do you broach that divide?
Yeah, so I mean, I think on a fundamental level, translate your most important documents. So if you have a white paper, one page or light paper, whatever the case is, even a website, try to translate it towards your target market. So maybe Japan, Korea, and Chinese, and then you can do English. Obviously, I'm probably missing a few in Asia. So yeah, that's something to consider. And then when you're actually targeting, yeah, everything should be localized. I even recommend having, and we talked about this a little bit, an English Telegram group is kind of the core, the global group. And then if you have the bandwidth or the manpower, branch that off. Have a Korean subgroup, Japanese subgroup. Just make it easy, right? It's just goes back to, UX UI of a new product. You just want it to be seamless, be as easy as possible for people to get the information they need, and then ideally to act on it, to put in money, to invest in the project. And by localizing it, you're giving them that flexibility, that convenience. So yeah, everything should be localized, from ad sets, reading material, customer support, you name it, it should be. But just decide, what your target markets are first.
Because you've worked on, is it now 50 projects? Have you hit the big 50?
Yeah, I haven't counted in the last couple of months. It's been crazy, but I think over 50, considering PR clients, advisory clients, full service marketing clients. So it's I'm pretty sure it's over 50 now, which is
it's quite a number considering you're not even 30 years old. But it's it's awesome, dude. It's you're not a bombastic guy about these things. So I just think it's really cool. But so with the 50 or 50 plus that you've worked on. With all the different teams you've worked on, which team raised the most revenue during the ICO, and how did that particular ICO differ from the other that you've worked on to date?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, I think it's like anything in life, you have to dig a little deeper, right? It goes back to Outliers, the book, which is one of my favorites. Sometimes it's the right place, time, access, everything comes together to make something special. For Elastos, which is one of my favorite campaigns. They had the backing of a lot of the Neo supporters at the time, and it launched December, January. So the timing was perfect. They had this, this amazing community built out already. Their communications were good. So by the time it opened, it was really, really seamless, right? I mean, people flooded in. I have other projects that are on the opposite end of the spectrum. No crypto experience. The founding teams come from traditional tech in Silicon Valley. Two particular come to mind that hit the hard cap. And essentially what they did, I mean, one was very marketing focused, and the second one was community driven, which basically getting in Telegram, answering hard questions. It was a rocky start. Ended up raising over 50 million just through persistence. I mean, it was really persistence. And these are both early 2018. So things have changed a little bit. So I think nowadays it's, you have to go after more institutional investors, funds, be a little more pragmatic about it. But it was consistency. I mean, I know that's once again cliche, but just keep going, right? It's like becoming a YouTube star, influencer. It's you just got to every day push.
So if you were talking to a founder now, or just people who are considering going into this space, what are your top 5 tips so far as launching a successful ICO?
Really good question. I mean, it goes back to my first, the highlight, right? Take your time. Come capitalized. I think that's the second biggest thing. So I know the industry was built off of this notion of, hey, we can start with nothing and raise $40 million and do it, with no budget. Much harder these days. It needs to be viewed as a professional fundraise. So you need the budget for that. If you can't afford to, hire a couple content writers, then I would probably, regroup, go after friends and family, try to build up a seed round essentially that gives you that comfort. Because you want to be in a place where you feel stretched thin, right? Third, choose your partners very wisely. So what I tend to do when I'm working with people, if they need a service provider in a certain vertical of marketing or in general, I will send them, anywhere from 3 to 5 different options of people I've worked with and I trust, and then I stay off of the call. That's it. I think we talked about that last time too. I stay off. I say, you guys talk to them, you evaluate them, ask hard questions. I'm objective. You're not going to offend me either way, right? Because I know, everybody needs to be comfortable with team and procedure. I mean, that's it. So yeah, importance of selecting the right partners. Number 3. Number 4, get creative, right? Like maybe the white paper is not the answer. Maybe the website can look a little different than a one-page continuous scroll like you see all the time. Maybe target a region that hasn't been thought about in the past as much, right? Like Latin America. Nobody wants to target Latin America, but there's amazing things going on down there. Great developer community, everything else, right? 5th. All right. 5th is a wild card. I need to think a little bit about
No, that's cool.
5.
I mean, one thing that's a common thread that's interesting is you've got a lot of pragmatism and you've got a lot of sort of like big ideas for marketing. So like if 5 can be like the bow on like the number one thing from a marketing perspective that folks should be doing with the ICO, then that would be really, really cool.
Yeah, always quantify the ROI where possible. Things like PR, it's going to be a little harder, but always quantify everything. So event sponsorship, a lot of people, that's a big question mark. Is it worth it? What I like to say for projects, I just had this conversation today, instead of spending $15,000 on an event, how about you pay $500 a night for 2 nights, get a suite up top, cater in lunch, and then everybody interesting you meet on the floor, invite them up for a free lunch and a 30-minute meeting, right? And this is similar to what DNA does, which is a fund in LA, and it's amazing, right? So it's thinking creatively about that. Obviously, stay lean, right? Stay lean and analyze the ROI and everything. And I think like that, coming well capitalized and staying lean, it's going to be a much easier than without any money and trusting everything that gets thrown your way in this crazy industry.
We found that releasing content in increments really helps sort of build up a bit of a flow. So how early would you suggest starting releasing content for an ICO? And is there ever sort of kind of like a point of no return, like where they've missed the boat and perhaps missed their opportunity so far as getting content out and generating it for the audience?
Yeah, so it goes back to great question. Do it sooner than later, but you need to keep the CTA in mind, right? Like what is the goal of the content? That should be the core. Is it we want people to sign up and collect their email address so we can retarget them? Is it we want direct contributions? Whatever the case is, gear the content and the timeline towards that. So, if you're releasing a bunch of YouTube content and you have a referral link and your website's not ready, then that's just wasted traffic, right? So you just make sure the pieces are in place, right? The timeline. Yeah, I would do it as soon as you're going live with the project, right? Maybe the white paper's not done yet, but if you have a landing page, the team's built out, and mentally, the team is satisfied that, this is going to happen, go for it. Start engaging. Yeah, you might get 10 views on the first video, 15 views. Don't look at it as a waste. I mean, you're building up presence, right? Yeah. Brand identity. So that's the goal, right? I mean, that's important.
Goes back to that branding, man. It's that damn cereal I've been eating for the last 23 years.
I know. Fruity Pebbles, man. This damn company. I don't know what it is. Nah.
So we just hit on white papers a couple of times, and I wanted to talk about that because that's something that comes up a lot. But white papers seem, the more I read, they sort of tend to say the same thing. There's usually a lack of really understanding of what the business is trying to do a lot of the time, and there seems to be just this cut and paste sort of phenomenon. Is there a better way to deliver the content that you would have in a white paper? What would that look like?
Yeah, I think shorten it for sure. I think you can keep it very to the point. And then I think the tokenomics is the most important thing, arguably. I mean, for investors, right? And then obviously roadmap, team, critical market that you're trying to disrupt, everything else. I don't think it needs to be that long. I think you can even do like a series of written content, series of video content, AMAs, and then keep somewhere where, you have a basic outline for reference of what this looks like, what the sale is going to look like. I think tokenomics is a big question mark right now. So I think we're finally starting to see, utility tokens obviously in the market right now are getting hit hard. I had dinner with a friend that's at a fund that's a statistician that's focusing on token velocity. Okay. So restricting supply, burning, but doing it very naturally based on algorithms that know the optimal time to do such things, right? And this is going to be like the next model of tokenomics that's probably going to be implemented. And they're building this thing out, which I think is fascinating, right? Because I think what we're seeing now is the current model is just not working. Yeah. Everything's flatlining. And granted, it's the market's fault, but it's also, maybe there's a smarter way of thinking about that.
Absolutely. So if let's just say for a second that vision of like, let's say the white paper got to 5 pages, or 6 pages. Then sort of what do you think sort of the traditional breakdown of what's normally in a white paper would look like there versus say like the videos that would come along with it or to help explain what would be in the other 35 to 40 pages in the paper?
Yeah, so videos, you're going to have emotion, right? You're going to be able to connect with people on a different level. Like, get passionate about the problem you're trying to solve. Why did the company start, right? That's where video comes off. Is like, you put the founder that has this really pressing problem that has driven them to do something as crazy as launch an ICO, right? And it's like, let's show that engagement, that passion. Let's get people excited, right? And usually, most founders, that excitement's tied into something substantial, whether it's quantitative or not. So that's where video comes into play. I think for investors, having a really clear-cut value proposition in a 5 or 6 page document. This is the idea. This is the problem. This is how we're going to do it. Roadmap. Here's what's in it for you if you want to get involved. Team, et cetera, right? I mean, it could be 6, 7 pages. Think about it now. A lot of the biggest ICOs, as far as hype goes, raise money without a developed website. I mean, it's a landing page, and everything they pitch and secure is done personally or through their network. Nobody's handing over a 35-page white paper in an investor meeting that's an hour long. It's not happening. It's just not going to happen. I mean, they'll provide it, but I would argue nobody reads it in its entirety, right? 10% of the people might read it, if I had to guess. Yeah. So, there's a different way of doing it.
So one thing you've been pretty adept at, I mean, we've talked about especially moving across markets, but just generally, businesses obviously always want to sort of grow and increase their customer base. So how do you, as a sort of a marketing dude, how do you effectively market to people who are not only already interested in ICOs, but ones you're trying to bring into the fray? How do you access those folk?
Good $1 million question. Yeah, there's this vast market of people that want to get in or maybe just not comfortable yet. So there's that, I think we talked about it, education curve that needs to happen. You need to ease them in and ease of use, and here's how you do it. I mean, people who are sold on the idea fall into 2 buckets right now. You have people that are really upset at the current state of the market and like, hey, I just got burned by, playing this game called crypto. And then you have the second set that are like long-term focused, and these are the people that you can retap. After a year of experience, they have their own due diligence process. They can evaluate projects, see what they like, don't like. So, for them to see a constant deal flow is beneficial for everybody. So, that, these can be strategic pools, syndicates, an active individual investor. These people you can retap. That's no problem. It's the people that are out there. It's hard to target them, right? I mean, you can retarget. There's little strategies and everything else, but getting them over the hump in this atmosphere, it's tough. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. Cool. Well, look, that's been really cool, dude. I've got some rapid fire questions for you, just like a fun crypto-y thing for our listeners. They had some that they wrote in. So I'm just going to start firing them off. And just as many as you can in 60 seconds. They'll should bring some giggles. So cool.
Let's do it.
Okay. So Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash?
Bitcoin.
Cool. Hot or cold crypto wallet?
Definitely cold.
Cool. Most influential person in crypto?
Ooh. Damn, this is a good one. Vitalik.
Love it. Will EFTs be approved this year?
I would say early next year.
Cool. Most undervalued crypto platform?
Ooh, platform as in protocol or just individual crypto?
Individual crypto.
Good question. Oh, damn. Yeah, I think Ethereum at the current buy is really strong. I think at 270, Ethereum is a strong buy right now. I'm not an investor. Yeah, I'm not a financial advisor. Consult your financial advisor, whatever the disclaimer is. Don't listen to me. But no, I think Ethereum is a very strong buy at the moment.
Excellent. HODL or trade?
HODL. Yeah. Yep. HODL. Definitely HODL.
What will Bitcoin... Jared, thanks for your time, man. I just absolutely love communicating with you and speaking with you.
Likewise.
I hope we do this for years to come. Can you just look into the camera and just tell the audience sort of what you're working on now and what you've got coming up next?
Yeah, definitely. Right now, I am in the process of closing Blockchain Ventures with my 3 partners in Los Angeles. We're going to be a crypto fund, continuing advising and just staying at it, marketing and advising. That's it. So adapting with the industry and looking forward to contributing to the ecosystem for years to come, I guess. Yeah, that's the goal.
Excellent. I can't think of a better place to wrap it for today, man. That was really cool. So thanks very much for your time. Go back to enjoying sunny Las Vegas, and yeah, I'll see you in a few weeks in the Big Apple.
Awesome. Thanks, Edward. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, buddy.
Take care.
And there you have it, an insider's view of launching an ICO, and in particular, some great information on the marketing side of this exciting industry. If you want to reach out to Jared directly, you can do so on LinkedIn, Telegram, and Twitter, and those contacts are in the show notes below. For Crypto Global News, I'm Edward. Until next time, you take care.